Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is David Icke. First, just a couple of announcements. If you'd like to help with our film fundraiser, we have links in the description. Anything is greatly appreciated there. Also, you can get a Rokfin premium membership. That's a great way to help support Forbidden Knowledge News. Go to rokfin.com/FKN+. And you can always download our audio episodes through Spreaker. This is another wonderful way to help support us. Also, we are booking guests for September and October. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show David Icke. He is author of over 21 books and numerous DVDs, a researcher, and he has lectured around the world. He is a pioneer in presenting the hidden nature of our reality. David, welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm very good, actually. It's a madhouse we're living in. It's an asylum we're living in, but you know, you keep going.
You do, and that's the only way that we could ever possibly find a way to break out of this madhouse. And today I'm really excited. We're going to talk about your new timely book, The Reveal, The Next Stage of Human Awareness. And this covers everything from who controls the world as usual to the nature of the afterlife, everything in between. And I'm very excited about this. And in my perspective, we're at a very critical stage of our human awareness, and much of what has always been fundamentally wrong with society is just being brought to light. And this is causing confusion, fear, and a lot of division right now. And like you said, it's a madhouse. But I've also seen many very positive changes in the collective, and we're going to get into that as well. We have a lot to discuss. First, tell us a little bit about what brought you to write this book.
Well, it's part of a trilogy. It's the third book in a trilogy, starting with The Trap, then The Dream, and then this one. And it's the result of the way I go about life and research and all that I do. And that is that I always know whatever I conclude at any point, that there's always more to know. And I think what I've seen in significant parts of what's called the alternative media is that people get to a certain point and they think I got it. What they then do is start to go round and round and round in like an eddy in the river, and basically repeat the same things. Now, for me, we need to realize the ludicrous, almost laughable range of frequency that we are actually aware of. It's insane. You know, according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy. And visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can see, everything we perceive is within that band of frequency, is a fraction of the 0.005%. So when you come from that perspective, the one thing you know is that whatever you think you know, there's always more to know. So when I started on this long journey, I'm in my 35th year now, in 1990, I started looking at who really controlled the world. I mean, what are the forces that really are behind world events and the direction that human society goes in? And you realize when you go down that road that the people that appear to be in power, the presidents, the prime ministers, the politicians, are not at all. There's layers behind them, many layers behind them actually, until you enter the realm of what I call the shadow people. Those are the people you never see, but they're pulling the strings. They're the ones that are always there as the here today, gone tomorrow politicians come and go of whatever party. So I reached that point quite early in the 1990s. And then I started coming across very strange information, particularly when I was traveling America after 1996, where people were telling me about their experiences with a non-human force, often reptilian, but not always. And so I started encompassing that. And you still keep going because even that, there's always more to know. In fact, once that starts to enter your research, the questions just explode. You realize there's a hell of a lot more to know. The next stage of it was when I started to see that this reality that we think is natural is actually a simulation. It's the equivalent, the very advanced equivalent, my goodness, of a virtual reality computer game. And the headsets that connect us into the computer games and take over our sense of reality, so people are thrashing around or falling off their chairs and screaming. The human headset is the human body, the human brain, which is decoding this simulation as a computer decodes Wi-Fi. But still, okay, more questions. What else is there to know? And so I started then looking at just how big this simulation really was, because these are the sort of things that, you ponder on. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to 60 countries. I can't go to that many now because I'm banned from 30 in Europe and Australia and lots of others if I try to get in them. But in the previous period, I traveled a lot, and what I saw in Asia and Africa and South America and Central America and other places is that the vast majority of the human race is not having a good time. It's trying to survive another day. So where this took my thinking was, I can understand that consciousness could be enticed into this reality to experience through this biological computer, as I've been calling it since the 1990s. Once I can understand that, and by this time I saw the real reality of reincarnation purely by looking at the tangible evidence. One of the people that I quote in the reveal is a man called Ian Stevenson, who was born in the early part of the 20th century and died, I think, 2007. And he was a psychiatrist. He was an American-Canadian psychiatrist. And he started coming across really small kids who were remembering what they said were previous lives in this reality. In fine detail, ridiculous fine detail. And so he started checking some of them out just out of interest and tried to debunk them. And he couldn't. He realized that he could go to these places, often were a long, long way away from where the child lived. And he could support what they were saying with evidence, often with people still alive today. I remember one, because he did thousands of these things, thousands. He didn't just, one or two. There was one, it was a little kid who claimed that in a faraway place, that he'd lived there. And so he described the house. So they go to the house. Eventually they track down the people in it. And he claims that the woman in the house was his wife at one point. The woman's husband had died. And so he said lots of things that were obviously true. But what they said to him was, look, when so-and-so died, you claim to be, basically, we couldn't find his will. Where is it? And the kid walks across to a floorboard. I think it was in the kitchen. And he said, it's under there. Wow. And they cut the floorboard up, and there was the bloody will, wow. Right? So you see loads and loads of these stories. And what Ian Stevenson did was forensically research them. So I've come to the conclusion quite a while ago that reincarnation was real. What I didn't buy, and this is what I go into in the book, in a significant part of the book anyway, it covers many subjects, interconnected subjects, is that it's to learn lessons to evolve. I didn't buy that at all. So what's going on? And what I came across in the writing of them were people who had near-death experiences, but my goodness me, I've read and watched so many accounts of near-death experiences when the body ceases to function and they find themselves in a different reality. I've done it for years and years and years because I want to, I'm looking for the common themes, and they are endless, the common themes. And just as an aside, why is it that when the body ceases to function, that these people suddenly experience a different reality, a completely different reality to this one, and one that obviously operates with a very different law of physics, as we call them anyway. And it's because this is decoding this reality. It's decoding this level. There are other levels, which I'm just going to come to, of this simulation, this matrix. And so and we are experiencing consciously in our consciousness what that is feeding us, what this is feeding us. Just as if I'm looking at this computer now, and I said to people, tell me about the internet, they would say, well, it's graphics and it's videos and it's words on the screen. Well, yes, it is, but that's the only place the internet exists in that form. Everywhere else, it's Wi-Fi field, information encoded in radiation fields, and electronic circuits and so on. The only place it exists is on the screen. And then you think, well, where is that happening that we are observing? It's happening inside the computer. It's not over here or over here. It's inside the computer. That's where all the decoding is going on. So as I started to research in mainstream science, the version of how we manifest reality, how we experience reality, you start to realize that actually the five senses which lock us into this simulation are picking up waveform frequency information. They turn that into electrical information, which is communicated to the brain, which then forms it into a reality that we experience, actually a digital holographic reality, illusory physical reality, although we experience it like that, that appears to be outside of us. Grant you, it does, but actually is going on inside of us, just as this is going on inside the computer. And so once that the body computer ceases to decode this reality because it's ceased to function, it's died, then immediately your consciousness is released from that focus of attention that the body gives you, and you're in another reality. And so my question then was, as I said earlier, you see all these people all over the world, these billions of people who are having a terrible time, often suffering in extraordinary ways, and definitely kind of battling to survive another day. And like I say, I could understand how someone could get pulled in and trapped in this reality, the old Adam and Eve story, if you like, symbolically. But why would you come back? Why the hell would you come back?
Yeah.
And I started really researching that for the three books, but particularly this one. And I came across some extraordinary people with extraordinary stories to tell about how this is a trap. It's a perceptual trap, not just to entrap you in this level of the simulation, a really dense, energetic level this is, which I'll come to as we go on later, but also to entrap you in another level of the matrix, which is different to this one, but is perceived to be the afterlife or the spirit world. And this Buddhist concept of the wheel of samsara, where you move between this level and that other level to learn lessons, to evolve, that I think is the trap. And I write about that and how we can get the hell out of here.
That is fascinating. Now, this opens up many doors that we can explore. First, I want to tie back, you mentioned the shadow people, the unseen controllers, to reincarnation, and there's many that speculate that these powerful controllers of our reality have mastered reincarnation in a sense that they can come back into the same amount of power that they left when they died, the same bloodlines, the same families, and they have control over their reincarnation cycle because they have agreements with the archonic forces controlling this matrix. What do you think about that?
Well, what's interesting, let me just go on to say what I was just indicating a few minutes ago. I came across people who could remember the incarnation process. Now, what happens, and Stevenson found this in his reincarnation research, kids usually remember these things. I mean, and most don't, of course, but because you're not meant to, and we'll get to why that is in a minute. But by the age of 7, these memories start to fade. Some keep them into adulthood, but there are many, many fewer of those than children who have past life memories before in the early years. But there are some that actually remember. And I think they're genuine, not least because they tell the same story of the incarnation process. And you know what's fascinating is that what they describe is not some spiritual kind of out there world. It's very technological. And one of the things that but it's a technological on another frequency level, another frequency band. Because, of course, we can hardly see anything. You know, people say, well, why can't we see these hidden controllers in? Because you can hardly see anything, mate. And I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that's an accident at all. I think that's by design. I mean, if we had a much wider visual range that we could see, then we'd see these controllers. We'd go, oh, you're doing it then. So, boom, we're in this ridiculously narrow band of visual frequency and other frequencies too. So one of the things that is so common in the people that remember their incarnation process is when they enter this reality, it's just stupendously dense compared with what people call the astral dimension. That this is basically this other level of the simulation, this spirit world as it's perceived. The infinity is beyond it. That's what they're trying to stop us getting it back to, because they, you know, if you came into this world once and then it could get out of it, I mean, they'd soon run out of consciousness to manipulate. And there's a reason why they have to keep us here, which again, I'm sure we'll get into as we go along. And so they describe coming into this reality, and they're going lower, 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 as one of them said, lower, 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 in terms of frequency and density, to the point where it's almost hard to function. So that's a big one in terms of understanding why this world is as it is, even on that level, and also for people to be kind to themselves. We constantly judge other people, and we're constantly self-judgmental. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an incredibly extreme density, which makes it's like walking through treacle. So let's be kind to ourselves. If you can awaken to some kind of perception beyond the human world, while in this state of extreme density that's all around you, this field you're walking through or appear to be walking through, then that it really is a fantastic achievement. And the other thing is that there is this theme, and it's not just with people that can remember their incarnation process. It's also with many, 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 many of these millions now of near-death experiences. It's that when you enter this reality, you go through some kind of electromagnetic net or field which wipes your memory. So when you come in, I mean, obviously it doesn't completely wipe everyone's, or they would remember previous lives, as these kids do, mostly before the age of 7. But it wipes their memory, and so in some cases, the people that can remember their incarnation, it don't work in the way that it should. This explains a lot. It explains why it's called the mind wipe. I call it the mind wipe anyway. It explains why we don't remember what's gone on before. And therefore we start with a blank sheet of paper. And what does that mean? We're like, who am I? Where am I? What is this place? But the other end fascinated me. I write about this in the book as well. It's when you leave the body, when the body ceases to function, and when you listen and you read all these different near-death experience accounts, invariably, when they leave the body, or actually the body leaves them, they say, it was amazing. I'd never felt anything like it before. I'd never experienced anything like it before. And you go, well, do you believe in reincarnation? Oh, yeah. Well, why don't you remember it then? Why? You obviously experienced it a lot of times before. And this mind wipe, it starts when you come in, and it continues until you get back under, shall we say, astral control of this same archontic force. That's to go back on the wheel of samsara, to come back in. And, I'll tell you what's fascinating when you dispassionately look at the two levels of how similar they are. The astral level of the simulation is, it's a very different frequency, heck of a lot less dense frequency. And therefore, of course, if you're comparing your experience in this extreme of density, and then you leave it, what we call matter, although there's more to know about that, then your comparison with what happens outside the body is, it must be heaven, because this is fantastic. And so you are then pulled into this idea that you have to keep coming back to learn lessons, to evolve. And we have this thing called karma. You've got karma to pay back, and all this stuff that goes on. But what's like I say, what's fascinating is how similar these two levels are in the way that they operate, in they're dynamic. Because if you look at in the human world, people are overwhelmingly, they're looking to authority to tell them what to think, how things are. He's a scientist. He must know what he's talking about. Oh, hello, doctor. Thank you, doctor, and all this stuff, right? It's all these experts and authorities that people look to, because they're just little me. I've got no power. What do I know? I've got to look to other people, right? And those other people just say, okay, thank you very much. I've got power over you. And it's like politics. you know, what's happening every election is vast numbers of people in different countries are saying to one person or one small group of people at least, here's my power. You know, you do it for me for the next 4 or 5 years or so. Because, you know, I've got no power. I mean, what can I do? And then when people leave the body and they go into this other realm, exactly the same dynamic is in place. Because what people describe, and I'm talking all of them, virtually all of them, is that they are met by spirit guides or religious heroes. You know, if you're of this religion, you'll see this religious hero. If you're this religion, you'll see another religious hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained in the book how that's possible because they're not religious heroes; they're projections. And how, you know, they'll see elders and elders judge them. And one of the massive common themes of near-death experiences is the life review, where these elders, these wise old men, they project your life, and you watch your life go through very quickly, and then they discuss all lessons to learn, all this stuff, and how those projections can happen, those life projections can happen, and how that information can be held, stored, and then delivered is also in the book, because we are in a reality that is so much more advanced in terms of technological possibility than ever we just even begin to understand. What we call AI and this cutting edge technology, it's the Stone Age compared with actually what's possible. And so you then return to experience something else, to pay back your karma or whatever, and it goes on. And because what happens? Hold on a minute, you're coming into this place of extreme density. Well, you're obviously going to do things you'd rather in another state of awareness not do. So you're not paying off your karma. I go into the book about karma. You're actually adding to it. So there's more lessons to learn now, and it's just an incredibly kind of endless cycle that goes on. And so what I'm also saying in the book is, just as we have this human body, this biological computer, which is our vehicle to experience this density, because our consciousness is vibrating way beyond this density. So if we're going to interact with this world, we have to have an outer shell through which to do it, which is within the frequency band of the world we want to experience in and interact in. So when you leave the body and you're going into this astral level, this spirit world, you also need an outer shell that can interact with that. And that's what I say anyway. That's what people call the soul. And I say that there's something beyond that. The true self is beyond that. I give it the name spirit. Is a state of awareness that we are pure awareness. That's what we are. No body, no form. We are just awareness. And we take on these energetic vehicles, if you like, to interact with certain frequencies that our consciousness couldn't directly interact with. But actually what we are is we are a state of awareness. And once you start identifying that with that, rather than the labels of a human life, for instance, then your frequency starts to reflect more and more that level that you're now self-identifying with. And that takes you out of the whole damn thing. I say anyway. It takes you out of the whole, all the different levels of the simulation and back into the realm of infinity. So what the that which is behind all this, the Gnostics called that force Yaldabaoth or Demiurge and Archons, that is constantly trying to keep you in a state of perception that will hold you within the frequency walls of the simulation, so you don't get out, because you're not even aware that there is something to get out of, because you think this is how it is, especially in the astral, where you're seeing the thing at another level, but you're still within the simulation.
Do you think that there are powerful bloodlines and humans on this planet that are rewarded by these archonic forces, like I was saying earlier, and able to reincarnate into a level of power that they still have control over the rest of humanity?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I would say that's spot on. Because what's happened over this 35 years is that all these different levels of what I call the conspiracy of human enslavement, they all fit. They're all expressions of the same thing. So, for instance, in the early 90s, I started putting together the network that manipulates human society within the frequency band of human society. I call it the global cult. And the global cult is a network of secret societies, which is fiercely compartmentalized. Even most of the people in the secret societies don't know the real big deal is that real inner core stuff, that is. It's the need to know technique of the CIA and such agencies. And what the global cult is doing is holding advanced knowledge, about where humanity is being taken and why, but also advanced knowledge about the nature of reality. And it's held at the inner core, but it's passed over through the generations. So you can get people like Aldous Huxley that was talking about technology in 1932 that's now only just coming online. It's because they have a completely different level of awareness, technological awareness, and never mind anything else, that they can put into novels that appear to be sci-fi, but actually they know the stuff exists, or at least is possible. And what this global cult has done is set up the sources of information, communication for the target population. So, for instance, the Rockefeller family, which is massively part of this cult, the inner core of it anyway, is behind, or was behind, the creation of the education system in America. The biggest, one of the biggest private funders of American education today, what we call education, is Bill Gates, who's a Rockefeller gopher. The Rockefellers created the World Health Organization, and it's funded today. The biggest private funder is Bill Gates, a Rockefeller gopher. You see how it works. And Tedros, the Secretary General of the World Health Organization, is an appointee by Gates, in effect, which means he's an appointee by the Rockefellers. So he does whatever he's told. That's how all this stuff came about in COVID and what have you. So you have the sources of communication. So it's not just the education system, of course, that was created by this network. So that from the earliest age right into the teenage years, you can download or upload to your target young people the perception of reality and self you want them to believe. They control through funding what we call science, mainstream science. So mainstream science is completely myopic in terms of the reality that it claims to be researching. You have cutting edge scientists, many of which I quote in the book, who can see beyond that, but they don't get the funding. They get marginalized. They can't get into the scientific journals, even though they have evidence to support what they're saying. But it's also the fact, of course, that this network, this cult, has owned the mainstream media. So wherever you look, your sources of information are basically coming from the same source, and they're designed to hold you in a myopia, not just of understanding reality and the forces really behind human society, but crucially to control your self-identity. They want you in two states of identity. One, the ideal one, is that you are just a body and you're just the labels of a human life. And that's all you are. That's what they want you to believe, ideally. But of course, they can't keep everyone like that. And so they've invented something called religion. And religion says you have a soul. And that's okay from their point of view, because my contention is the soul is how we experience it's an energetic field through which we experience the astral, the so-called spirit world, the afterlife, the fake afterlife. And so they're fine with that. So you've got this dynamic where very advanced information is passed on through this cult, through the generation, while the population is kept in ignorance systematically of what they know. And so when you have these bloodlines and these families which kind of go through this intergenerational cult network, what you have is people who, because what happened is that when I'd established in my mind that this cult existed, my next question was, when did it start? And you go back and you go back and you go back. You get into ancient times, Babylon and ancient Egypt and all that stuff, and the creation of Rome and all that business, and the Vatican. But then you ask the question, well, so people have been coming in, playing a part in advancing this agenda. And how has the advancement worked? It's worked through the incessant centralization of power. So you had a tribal situation once where people in the tribe decided what the tribe was going to do. And often they had a chief that decided for them. But then you had this point where lots of tribes were brought together under what were called nations. And now a few people at the center of all those tribes are now dictating to all those tribes collectively. And then you have organizations like the European Union, BRICS, and all these other trading groups, which are amalgamations of nations. So now a few people, look at the European Union, goodness me, a few people at the center of the nation are now dictating, most of them unelected, the key ones unelected, to all those previous nations who were deciding their own fate at one point, who were made up of tribes who were deciding their own fate at one point. So this, if you're a few and you're going to control the many, you have to centralize decision making. It's the only way you can do it. So this this centralization, which has been the result of people coming in, having a life, not a very long life in some eras, and then going out, born, die, and then others will come in, born, die, and it's pushed it on and pushed it on. And one question that comes to mind, or came to mind for me anyway, is why would those people, this is long ago now, why would those people come in and play a part in advancing an agenda that they were never going to see the end of, right? But then you realize they are, because they keep coming in. Because a lot of the key players in this conspiracy, in this cult, they are archons. They are an archontic energy. They are an archontic mind. And one of the things I've learned many in various ways over the years is that what this archontic mind doesn't have is an ability to experience empathy or compassion. It's like they are literally like computer programs. And so, so many people in the population who do have the capacity for empathy and compassion, when you say this is what they're doing, oh, you'll know this, you'll have experienced all of this. When you say what they're doing, they say they'd never do that. No one would ever do that. No, you would never do that. They would do it because they have computer programs, the equivalent of pressing enter.
Right.
They don't have this capacity to filter experience in a way that they can put themselves in what the others are experiencing. To them, this mentality, this archontic mentality, which is the major players in this global cult within the human world, the dynamic is basically like humans and farm animals. You know, they have no empathy with us at all. I mean, you look at Bill Gates, who's a classic example of what I'm talking about, and Klaus Schwab. They have no empathy. They don't make things happen like COVID and the fake jab and all this stuff. And they'll put all these vaccinations into kids, which sterilize them in Africa. I mean, you can't do that if you have empathy. They don't. And once you grasp that, you then start to understand the dynamic between that which is manipulating human society and the population in general. So it's another area that I talk about in the book, and which really made many pennies drop. And that was in the kind of early mid-90s. I started to realize that these key players in this cult were taking part in satanic ritual. And they were literally sacrificing people, often children. This is where you get in the ancient world, sacrificing young virgins to the gods. And I started to realize that actually because first of all, you go, these people you see on the news, they're sacrificing people. What? Well, you've got no empathy. Anyone with empathy is not going to do that, are they? They can't. It's impossible. You can't do it because your empathy stops you. They have no empathy, therefore they do anything. There's no limits. There's no fail-safe mechanism. I've called empathy the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. And if you don't have it, well, anything goes, right? So I started thinking, well, hold on. The ancients used to sacrifice people. They used to do it openly, all over the world. And you go, so how does that connect? And what you realize is the, quote, gods that they were sacrificing to in the ancient world openly were the astral gods, the astral archontic gods, that these people are still doing it to. So the next question is, okay, what do the gods get out of this then? What's the reason for it? Because the gods obviously get something out of it because it's an offering to the gods. And then massive pennies drop in why this simulation exists at all, and why the world is as it is. So I started to see, it's a long time ago now, but more and more evidence comes with the years, that these entities are feeding off low vibrational human energy. Mainstream science has long known now that every time we feel emotion or every time we think, we're generating a frequency. Now, because these frequencies are happening actually in the astral dimension, we can't see them. We see the body language of emotional states, but we don't see the emotional frequencies coming off, although we can feel them. Ooh, got bad vibes from him or whatever. And so you realize that what they're doing is feeding off human energy, but it's a particular frequency of human energy which relates to low vibrational emotion and thought, all around the key emotional key response of fear. It's fear, it's resentment, it's anxiety, it's depression. it's violence, it's conflict of all kinds. These are the energies that they're feeding off, which means that within this simulation they have created and are manipulating, they have no interest whatsoever in things like love and joy and happiness and peace. They have no interest in that. It's not a frequency that they want. They want the low vibrational frequencies. Why? Because they're in a low vibrational state. That's why they do what they do. And you can only absorb what you can connect with. So when you see all these wars and world wars and conflicts and all the things that make people fearful and worry and anxious, it's all generating what has become known among people that have researched this as loosh, the collective word for this low vibrational energy. And there was a guy called Robert Monroe who popularized what's called a out-of-body experience. For if people haven't come across this, you have a near-death experience. That's when the body ceases to function and consciousness is therefore released from this focus of attention. Because that's all death is. It's a transfer of your focus of attention. But an out-of-body experience is the ability to project into this astral dimension while you're still alive, while your body's still working. And he popularized that. And he did a hell of a lot of it to the point where he was approached by the CIA. This is well documented now. In something called the gateway process. And the gateway process was a study which brought together people who had this ability to project their awareness into, conscious awareness, into this astral dimension. And the study was, what did they experience? And funnily enough, as one of the military people involved, it was quoted as saying later, is that these experiences, out-of-body experiences, experienced or saw so many reptilian entities in the astral dimension, which is where I say they are, that they gave them a collective name of the alligators in the Gateway study. And what Robert Monroe said is that he learned in his astral projections that these entities were feeding off human low vibrational energy, as I would call it. And what I found fascinating is that I'd concluded all that before I came across the Monroe work, the Monroe information about all this. So it was not he said that, so it must be true. It was actually just another confirmation, a major one, of what I'd already realized. And that starts to put in perspective why this human sacrifice spans to the gods, spans this whole period of human history. It's because what the sacrifice rituals are doing is creating such terror in the victim that they are generating very powerful low vibrational energy, which is what terror is and trauma is. That's why they want as much trauma as possible. And these entities are feeding off that energy. Like I say, this energy, you can't see it. You can see the body language that comes from it, but you can't see it because it's going into this astral dimension. Mm-hmm. And these entities are feeding off it. And the Satanists in human form are drinking the blood of the sacrifice. Horrible. Yeah, this is how it works. Because this terror, which has an energetic expression, also has a chemical expression. It fuses or infuses adrenaline into the blood, which these sick people drink to, and it's like a drug to them. And so, of course, the ancients did it openly, and then it became completely unacceptable as humanity reached some kind of level of maturity. And now they do it secretly. They've done it secretly ever since. And we're talking about, in previous books, I've talked about how the British royal family are massively involved in this.
For the last few minutes we have, I'd like to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, possibility of a way out. When I look back at the events that have unfolded since 2020, it seems to me that there have been a lot of awakened souls since then, and I wonder if there would be this many awakened people if the events didn't unfold as the way they have. And I also wonder if there is a greater force outside of this archonic force that may be assisting humanity in any way. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But you see, people say, they said to me over the years, when's the cavalry coming? But the cavalry is the cavalry because it's in a high frequency state. And if it comes into a low frequency state, it will probably be working in a call center or driving a bus or whatever the different people's jobs are, because it will be caught in the low vibrational illusion. We have to play our part in breaking out of the perception of what I call the dream in my previous book, an induced dream, and see it for what it is. Because, if you have a dream and the dream seems real, it has obviously a massive emotional and mental impact upon you. You can wake up in the middle of the night kind of screaming or in a hot sweat because of the dream you thought was real. But then you have what are called lucid dreams, and I have a lot of them, when you know you're in a dream. You're aware that you're in a dream, and instead of being in the dream, you're observing the dream. And they do not impact upon you emotionally and mentally because you are the observer. And that when you are caught in this belief that all this is real, you have a myopia of perception that holds you in the five sense realm pretty much alone. And then you are in the world, you're in the matrix, and you are of the matrix. But when and that's when you self-identify with being a human and all the labels of a human life. What I'm saying is we're not human. We're consciousness, ultimately infinite awareness, having a brief human experience through a vehicle within this tiny band of frequencies. And when you start to redefine your self-identity from I am a human, I am my name, my life story, etc., my religion, my culture. No, it doesn't mean you can't experience those. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy those. It means you're aware of what they are. So you're not caught in the dream. You're observing the dream. And some parts of the dream might be very nice. Oh, I'm enjoying this. But you're not caught in it. And the more that you expand your self-identity to more and more that you are consciousness, you are a state of awareness, you will start, first of all, to reconnect with what's called your soul, this astral level of you. You'll start to connect with that. Now that will start to impact on you because you'll start to have a much wider sense of reality, but it's still within the matrix. When you get into those levels of self-identity, not conceptually, but you are them, you live them, of I am spirit, I am just a state of awareness. I'm not a soul, I'm not a body, I'm just a state of awareness. Then the frequency you're generating, the frequency you're vibrating on, takes you out of the matrix. It takes you beyond the matrix, because I don't know if you come across this esoteric concept, and you find it in different forms in many ancient cultures, of the ring pass not, where it's perceived to be a point, a level where you can't go beyond unless you are in a certain state of enlightenment. And for enlightenment, I would say, read aware of your true self, of your true I, of your infinite I. And it's interesting that the Buddhists have this concept of the wheel of samsara, and they say that you have to keep learning lessons to reach a state of enlightenment, i.e. frequency, perception, that you can leave the cycle. And what they're describing, I say, erroneously, in terms of you've got to learn lessons to get out of here. No, you've got to become aware to get out of here. And often the lessons take you deeper into it. You reach a state of self-awareness whereby the matrix can't hold you anymore, because you're in a completely different frequency. It's like, two radio stations. One can't hold you in here anymore. But if you are kept, and this is the whole basis of the conspiracy, both in the astral and in the human world, it's to hold you in a state of perception, a state of self-identity, which will keep you within the frequency walls of the matrix. Because although the frequency walls of the human world are incredibly dense and incredibly low, in the astral world, still in the matrix, they're much, much higher. And as you go up through the astral, they get higher and higher. So, it's this real self-awareness of what you are beyond all these forms.
Could it be that collective awareness, enough of it may essentially break the matrix?
100% again. Because I tell you what I've learned over this 35 years is that we absolutely must not fall for the fact that this force, these entities, in the end, they're a very schismatic, inverted state of consciousness. This is why the world's inverted. It reflects them. They are not all powerful. They're not. They're idiots. You've got to be an idiot to want to do what they're doing. And it's not that we depend on them. They depend on us. They have to manipulate us into low vibrational states. Otherwise, lunch is cancelled, right? Their energetic source is cancelled because they have to feed off our energy. For reasons I go into in the books in some detail. So therefore, they have to keep us in a lower level of, they have to dumb us down into a lower level of awareness about everything than they're in. It's literally a case of, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Very appropriate, given one of the great symbols of this cult is a one eye, single eye you see on the dollar bill and the reverse of the Great Seal of the United States. That's that all-seeing eye. That's the level they are. But they have to not keep us one-eyed. They have to keep us blind, symbolically, in terms of knowledge. But when we become the two-eyed, third-eyed, infinite being that we are, or at least we start to move into that, suddenly the dynamic changes and we see where the real power is. You see, if you look at things like tyranny is not brought in by tyrants. There's never enough of them. Tyranny is brought in by the acquiescence of the population to tyranny and tyrants. That's how it's done. It's acquiescence that creates tyranny, not the tyrants themselves, because they haven't got the power to do it. It's not enough of them. And that dynamic you can see throughout the simulation. And that's why they have to keep us divided. That's why they have to divide and rule us. That's why they have to keep or create all these different group thinks that they can play off against each other, different religions, different political persuasions and parties. They have to do that. And I've had a lot of abuse. I don't care, but I've had a lot of abuse in the last 2 years for calling out the alternative media, which I say has been hijacked, especially
I agree.
since. And what this is what I suggest has happened, and I do write about this in detail in parts of the book, and how it all works and why. But when COVID happened, and you rightly have acknowledged that here, there was an awakening. Now, I saw a lovely quote recently which talked about how you don't awaken, you have a series of awakenings. And so you awaken, say, first to the fact that the people that are basically, it's like my awakening, if I think about it, sitting here. You awaken to the fact that there are forces at work that are running society, directing society, that are not actually the ones you think are doing it. They're behind the ones you think are doing it. Okay, and then you have another awakening, and then eventually you go into all this nature of reality, nature of self, identity, and all that stuff. So once that process began, and it began with so many people with COVID, because I said at the time when COVID started in around January, February of 2020, these people have just entered the room. Because people like me before that were uncovering, and in the early days was not many.
Yeah.
You were uncovering something that was operating in perceptual terms of the population below the radar. And so it was all like, oh no, it's not happening, it's conspiracy theory and all that stuff. And then with COVID, it entered the room, it entered the radar. My God, what's happening? And that trigger had to happen because, as I said long time ago, there's going to come a point, and COVID was it, where if you're going to transform society in a way you want it transformed, you've got to at some point break the surface where you are transforming society in a way that people are seeing it. It's not under the radar anymore, because if you don't reach that point, you're not going to transform society. You're always going to be, under the radar, and society's not going to change in the way that you want it to. So there has to come a point where people look around and say, what's happening? What's happening? COVID was it. And so the genie was leaving the bottle. And so many people, especially with hindsight, with the jab and its effect and everything, could see that actually the world's not like I thought it was. That putting the genie back in the bottle was completely was pretty much a hopeless case. It wasn't going to happen for lots of people. So what you do is you make sure the genie doesn't get out anymore. And so all these different people have come in, and if you look at it, overwhelmingly from the mainstream before, nearly all of them completely bought the COVID hoax. They've come in to the alternative media, and what they've done is create a barrier around basically politics and religion and finance to an extent. And they keep telling you this is the conspiracy. Never mind all that. Never listen to that guy Icke. He's completely bonkers. He is. We ain't going to talk to him. It's Trump or Harris. That's the level of the conspiracy. And of course, Trump's the good guy, and Harris the bad guy. Yeah. I think that.
Yeah.
I think they're both mirrors of each other personally, but they're just a different direction to manipulate the people. But the point is that this, what I call hijack of the alternative media, and Musk is big time part of this, has held the line, if you like. And that line must be broken, because I have enormous respect. I mean, people like you're a good example of it. But I have enormous respect for this great swathe of people outside of the barrier in the alternative media who are open to these greater visions of what's going on. But they are not the ones that get the massive algorithmic support, not least through Twitter X. They don't get the financial support that they get. There are certain people who have come in and they have dominated the narrative, and the narrative is a little bit wider than the mainstream narrative, but it's still within the barricade. And for me, we need the free flow of information. I'll give you an example. What points I would make is there are some people that have come into the alternative media who are knowingly manipulated, but they are the very few. If you want to hold the line, then what you do is you find the people who have limited knowledge of the big picture, who are focused on what you want to be focused upon, like politics, etc., religion, and you promote the hell out of them. You give them massive audiences, you give them massive algorithmic support. I mean, I'm shadow banned like crazy on Twitter X. It's laughable now. And you let them do what they think is right. Oh, this is the conspiracy. They don't realize it's a fraction of it. It's just an expression of it. It's not it. And so if you look at Tucker Carlson, I used to watch his show every morning when I got up about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd watch his show on YouTube with Fox News. Not because he got the big picture, he didn't, but he was further ahead of the rest of the mainstream television media, etc., in America. And so he was doing interviews and calling things out that were not happening elsewhere, right? So one of the things that these people are absolutely brilliant at, I mean, they may be idiots, but they're very clever in this area particularly. They know how to manipulate human perception, and they can very well predict that if you give people trigger A, they will react like this. So this is why I say to people, we've got to get out of black and white thinking, and we've got to see the nuances, and we've got to see the subtleties of perceptual manipulation, because that's the level it really operates at. Yeah, they want you to see things in black and white because the truth is always in the same shades of gray. And so when Tucker Carlson was fired by Murdoch's operation, Fox News, people said black and white. He's been fired because he's gone too far. Well, he didn't actually go very far, but he went further than anyone else. That's why I was interested. But hold on a minute. Do you not think that those who were behind his firing knew what the outcome was going to be? Soon as he was fired by Fox, he was going to become an alternative media hero. He was going to get vast audiences, which is exactly what happened. I mean, Musk had got Twitter X by then, and so we had an immediate, massively great audience than that he had on Fox to broadcast to, and you know, so the focus of attention. I mean, you know, because Tucker Carlson has got closer and closer to the Trump people, and all these people that have come in are basically in the Trump dynamic, including Elon Musk. And, you know, again, if people don't ask or see the subtleties or ask the key questions, like I've been tracking Elon Musk for bloody hell so long before he bought Twitter X. And when he bought Twitter X, or quote, he did, A lot of people did. And does he really control it? No, I don't think he does at all. But anyway, he's a great front man for it. He has been running through his companies like Neuralink and SpaceX and Tesla with the climate change stuff, um, uh, a wish list of this cult, how it wants to transform society. He's called for a carbon tax. He's said that there needs to be a guaranteed basic income, all the things off the wish list that he's basically calling for. And before he bought Twitter X, there were members of the alternative media. There still are outside the barricade, but there were people that were calling him out and saying, "Hold on, this is you're taking us to transhumanism. What are you doing?" But once he bought Twitter X, finish, no more. So he could do no wrong, and so he's gone on doing the same things, like putting all these low orbit satellites up, firing electromagnetic fields at the Earth, 5G, 6G, 7G to come. Without this mainstream of the alternative media calling him out, because he's suddenly a hero. And it was absolutely no surprise, I tell you, to me, that there came a point where suddenly, just a few weeks ago now, he went full in on the Trump, the Trump dynamic, the Trump arena, which he's gone big time on now. He's a friend of Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a guy who started a company called Palantir, which provides surveillance technology to the Pentagon and the intelligence community, not just in Britain, in America either. And Peter Thiel was the first outside investor in Facebook, behind PayPal and the PayPal mafia, which included Musk. And Peter Thiel is a business associate and political funder of J.D. Vance, who is now the running mate of Trump. And when they were talking a few weeks ago now about the possibilities of who Trump would select, as soon as I saw the name J.D. Vance, I thought it was going to be him. You have this network, this Silicon Valley surveillance AI network that is all moving in on this Trump arena, because you have two basic mentalities. Again, we come back to perceptual manipulation. You have two basic mentalities. You have the woke mentality, which you find on what used to be called the left. It's the fake left now. And they'll basically go along with the whole agenda. I mean, I go into in the book and the other books how this whole woke agenda, how it came about and how it's serving the cult, the where he wants to take society. But you have another group, which are basically in America Trump supporters, who don't want that. They don't want that. They're very much against it. And a lot of these people that came into the alternative media, and people like Peter Thiel, they fund Rumble and what have you, and such like. And he was, by the way, Peter Thiel of Palantir Surveillance Technology, he's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. And his co-founder of Palantir is also on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. This is a quote, globalist organization that's pushing the agenda, the same kind of agenda that the World Economic Forum is pushing. And the cult in general, of which they're a part, is pushing. So what are these? Why are these people wanting to get involved with all this Trump arena and what have you? And of course, J.D. Vance, he's a big venture capitalist in the area of AI and technology. And so you have two things. You have the hard sell of AI control, including the connection to the human brain of AI, which is happening now, by the way. People don't realize it is. And that comes through Schwab and Gates and all these people, these very obvious cult operatives to anyone who's paying attention. But you have a whole arena of people, tens of millions in America alone, who don't want that. So you have to give them the soft sell. Mm-hmm. You have to sell the same agenda, but you have to do it in a different way. And their front man to do that is Elon Musk. And now he's become a hero of that arena while pushing on with the AI agenda. And all these people from Silicon Valley, these Silicon Valley billionaires involved in the all that AI thing, they're all moving in to support Trump. And including a guy called Mark Andreessen, who blocked me on Twitter. I never mentioned the bloke. And he blocked me on Twitter right at the time that JD Vance was being made his running mate, and I was calling it out, and his connections to Peter Thiel, and he blocked me on that. I'm blocked by loads of people on Twitter, on the face of it, completely different people coming from completely different directions. Like the Tate brothers both blocked me. Mark Andreessen's blocked me. Geert Wilders, who is head of the biggest party in the Dutch government, blocked me because I was calling him out on the fact that he was a man of the people who had a great election victory. And I don't know whether you know, but Geert Wilders has overseen the imposition of a former head of Dutch intelligence as Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who's not elected. He's not elected. He's been appointed by this cabal around Wilders as Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And so all these people you're calling out because they're frauds, they kind of block you. And what that blocking group kind of tell you is that there is a connection between the Silicon Valley's AI people and the people that are supposed to be representing the interest of people pushing back on the elite.
Yes, we have reached an incredible time, and like you said, it is a madhouse. I do have hope with the amount of souls that are awakening right now. I think that if we keep going like we were discussing earlier, there is a chance to break out of these systems because, like you said, the forces controlling it are not all powerful. I think it's a very important time for this information. I want to thank you so much for presenting this information and still being the most relevant voices in this space. It's very important right now. So, David, we'll have to do this again, of course. Before you go, is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Only that if you start to move beyond the fake, I wrote a book years ago called Phantom Self. And that's what I think most people are living. They're living a phantom self. They're self-identifying the I with the body. And it's just an experience. It's a brief experience. You are consciousness. You are the consciousness having the experience. But beyond that, you are a state of expanded awareness, ultimately infinite awareness, that is the true I. And what this cult wants you to do, and that which is behind it, is to forget that. That's the whole thing. Some people have called this human world the veil of forgetfulness. Well, we've discussed why that is and how that's done. But we can remember, we can. We can become aware of what's going on in a much more expanded way while we're still in a human body. We can, but we have to open our minds to it, because one of the greatest forms of mind control is to control people's sense of the possible, to squeeze their sense of the possible, so that they dismiss things that are happening and dismiss things that they are, because they can't perceive that it's possible that they are happening or they are really who you're saying they are. And so we need people to open their minds and let consciousness in, because once you start that process, especially if you stop getting caught in the hijacked alternative media focus on politics and right-wing politics, essentially, then as long as you don't fall for that, then it's a hell of a ride where one awakening leads to another, and you just get more and more aware that this is not what you were led to believe it is. Nothing like.
100%. David, thank you so much. This was essential information. Definitely love to talk with you again in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. I will have all David's links right in the description, and we will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.